What's up, guys? We're working on the Dyna again today, and we've been focusing on the shocks. Just got off the phone with Matt from OHLINS and talking about the proper setup of the suspension on your Harley-Davidson and how this can affect the way it handles. There's a number of adjustments on these shocks. According to Matt and myself and everybody else I talked to, 8 out of 10 guys that gets a set of these OHLINS black lines pops them on the bike and never does anything. There's a number of adjustments that need to be performed, and guess what? It's all in the manual that comes with the shock. The first thing you do is you jack up the bottom of the bike with one of these floor jacks, and you measure the distance between the swing arm to this bolt right here. That's called your starting point for the free sag, and then you drop the bike back down and you measure it again. And however much the suspension compresses through the weight of the bike, that's called your free sag, and there's a certain setting for it. Do you know off the top of your head what it is?
I think it's 5 to 15 millimeters.
It's in the manual, 5 to 15 millimeters. So that needs to be set right, and bikes vary in weight heavily. So set your free sag. Then you have the rider sit on the bike with their feet on the pegs, and you measure the distance between here and there, and that's called your rider sag. That's adjustable by this right here. This is the spring compression. See this little collar right here? If you're reading the manual, there's an adjustment point right here. Where's the adjustment tool?
That's your
Grab the tool.
preload adjustment.
It's called the preload adjustment.
And that measurement would be 25 millimeters to 35
25 millimeters. And you can turn this up or down. And if you crank it down, it brings the bike up. If you turn it the other way and make the string longer, it brings the bike down. That'll determine how much rider sag you want. Will be different with a passenger. If you're riding with a passenger 80% of the time, test it with your passenger on the bike, because it makes a huge difference in the geometry of the bike and the way it handles. So you've got your free sag, you've got your rider sag, then you also have the length of the shock. These OHLINS black lines are infinitely adjustable, where a stock shock has pretty much zero adjustment. On the bottom here, you'll see there's a collar, and this, you can actually loosen that bolt and turn this eyelet out, and each time you turn it, it raises the bike 1 millimeter. You can go out 10 turns for a total of 10 millimeters. In English, that's 3/8 of an inch. So these come stock at 13 inches. You can bring them to almost 13.5 inches. It doesn't sound like a lot, but it makes a big difference. It makes the swing arm angle a little bit lower. Now, if you're a high-speed rider like my buddy Jack, who we rode into Hartford the other day, he said we were doing 135 miles an hour, which is probably the fastest I've ever been on a Harley. These guys were absolutely moving, and I was trying to keep up. And if your bike is jacked up in the rear, that changes, it makes your front end geometry steeper, so the bike will be more prone to a high-speed wobble. So if you're a high-speed rider like Jack, you probably want to run these in the stock setting, which is 13 inches. Now, so now you've got your free sag, you've got your rider sag, you've got the length of the shock, then and the spring preload. Now you can adjust. There's two adjustments. This is the compression adjustment. How many clicks are there on the compression? You can see there's an S and an H. There's angles. To go softer, you go this way. If you want it harder, go this way. You got your high speed, your compression dampening. Then on the bottom, you've got your rebound dampening. You hear that little click? So you set the compression and the rebound according to what it says in the manual. And if you're riding and you want a little firmer dampening, you can just reach down and crank these up a couple turns on each side. I'll just pull over for a second. So there you have it. You've got your a lot of adjustment: the length of the shock, the compression dampening, the rebound dampening, the rider sag, both free and laden. So all in the manual. Read your manual. Do it. It's easy. This is the second set that I actually set up completely, fully the way the manual said, and it makes a huge difference in bottoming out and that kind of thing. So now, when you do your rear suspension is also impacted by the front suspension. If the front suspension's stock, it's going to be kind of mushy. It's an 18-year-old bike, so the springs are going to be worn out through gravity. So we put a brand new set of fresh, progressive, heavy-duty springs, and we up the fork well from 10 weight to 20 weight. And there's adjustment on the front forks. On this particular bike, you can adjust the compression, the preload. You just use a wrench and you can make this shorter. It's like a preload adjustment. We actually put an additional preload spacer in the front forks, which compresses the spring a little bit more. So it's got a preload spacer in there, heavy duty springs, heavy duty fork oil, and we adjust the compression on the top and the rebound dampening on the bottom, just like you do on the rear shocks.
And if it's 10 clicks, then you put it in the middle as your base setting.
This guy Chris is a professional motorcycle mechanic and a pro motocross racer. We call him the Dirt Bike Wizard. He set Doug Danger's world record setting suspension up on a CR500. He works here full time. more than full-time. He's here 7 days a week pretty much with us at Kaplan Cycles. And you're doing Doug's suspension for his jump here at the museum, right, in 2 weeks?
Last time I did it was probably 91.
Was it really that long ago?
Yeah.
So that was like 28 years ago.
CR 500.
So you actually can do like complete shock rebuilds, fork rebuilds,
Yeah.
seals, everything, right?
Yep.
And that's what you're going to do. You're going to do his front forks and get the thing dialed in for the jump.
He's got a set of long seals.
So there you have it. We got the guy behind the scenes here who's doing all these things I'm talking about to make this thing handle right. As far as the Dyna goes, you do have we were talking to Matt from OHLINS. He said the stock suspension swing arm connecting mount. The swing arm connects to the transmission. The transmission connects to the engine. Then there's a rubber mount that mounts this to the frame. And George Serjowski showed us in the last video, when you take the top motor mount off, how much flex there is in that. The guy from OHLINS, frankly, said it's a horrible system. And after 18 years of degradation in the quality of the rubber, you definitely want to replace that with a heavy-duty rear engine mount and a front engine mount. This is one very similar to the legendary FXR Harley-Davidson completely designed motor mount. So in addition to the suspension, we do the motor mounts. This thing should handle like a dream. So stay tuned, and God bless America. If you want to buy a set of OHLINS, I highly recommend them. My dad always said, buy the best, you'll never regret it.